What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. It's been a day already. It's only 2 p.m. Eastern. I was up mad early this morning, saw a couple really good nights in the Discord. Ski, I think. What did he win? I don't even remember what he won, but he won something.
I forget what contest it was. I think it was the $5 single entry.
Yeah, $5 single entry, the $5 soak check. What was it for 1,000? It was probably one of the single entries then. Yeah, you needed the Leafs, and we definitely talked about the Leafs yesterday, and I didn't play them, but congrats to you. And then Brandon in our Discord, aka Russell. Of course, here's the thing. He's a Leafs fan, and he's Brandon, aka Russell. There's two things I don't trust. Leafs fans and people with two first names, and he's both. And it creeps me out. But I'm just kidding. You did win the 20, the Overlord or whatever it's called, for $10,000.
Yeah, I think it's Braden Russell.
Oh, yeah, Braden.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's a little way too much caffeine. But yeah, congrats to you. Sorry that you grew up a Leafs fan, but that is a sick lineup, 5-figure cash. I honestly didn't even know what stakes you played. I don't know what stakes anyone plays unless they tell me. Didn't even know you were playing the 20. Shipped the 20, clear by a while there with Toronto and Columbus 3. That's an amazing lineup. Congrats to you. I know you grind really, really hard. It's nice to see that pay off. So congrats to you guys.
Yeah. Congrats both to Braden and Ski. Love to see those takedowns both with Toronto and Columbus with a couple differentiating things. The Vasilevsky shutout, Rasmus Anderson had a great game, but yeah, both grinders, both guys that play a lot. Nice to see them get rewarded. Hopefully 1 month left in the season. Hopefully we can get a few more nights like that the rest of the way.
Yeah. And yeah, there was one path to victory yesterday. You either had the Leafs or you didn't. Not surprised that a Leafs fan won last night. So yeah, we literally talked about it yesterday. We're like, yeah, like the Leafs are going to break out. I know we like sarcastically kind of was poking fun at it, but yeah, they did leave it up to the Flames penalty kill to ignite the Leafs. Wolf got hung out to dry a bunch. It wasn't completely his fault, even if he wasn't on his A game there, but hopefully there will be multiple paths to victory on this 9-game slate. It's a pretty important slate for playoff contests or for playoff teams vying for a playoff spot. Montreal playing Ottawa. That's a big game. Rangers are in action. So I know there's some West teams that are close, and I forget who they are. I just know the East is bottled up besides Boston and Buffalo, really.
Yeah. Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah, and Calgary are all within 2 points of each other for the final playoff spot, and they all play tonight. And none of them are playing each other. So might not know 3-point games, but pretty big night. It's one of those nights where if 3 teams win and one team loses, that one team could be pretty much done. So they're very interesting in the West tonight.
Yeah. Excited for it. Let's get into this slate. But before we do, thank you guys again. All season, last season, after January, you guys have been supporting us bigly for a long time. Just even watching the show, the numbers, the views on the show, the live viewers between Twitter and YouTube have been banana land. It is really nice to see. If you do want to go premium, click that top link, and that's for DFS. Stochastic 15 will get you 15% off any week or month. MLB coming up, PGA in full swing, UFC this weekend. So there are a lot of options. If you do want to go to the betting side of things and you don't want to get hacked by a porn bot on the playback channel, you can go to the Odd Shopper link, sign up for Portfolio EV. There's a 68% off coupon there. Those guys have been killing it, especially with March Madness coming up. Sign up for that Odd Shopper Portfolio EV at 68% off and start betting and winning and doing all the good stuff that we do. This is what happens when I don't have set ad reads. I just whatever. Let's get into the slate. Ottawa Senators with a 2.9 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.6. I think Montreal has 71 points. Ottawa has 77. The Rangers have 72. This is a big game for the Canadiens. They're going to be rolling out Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, Line, Newhook, Roy, Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson. Ottawa's going Kachuk, Stützle, Giroux, Batherson, Cousins, Perron, Pinto, Grieg, Amadio. This is like I said, this is a big game for both teams, really, more so for Montreal. I think you mentioned it in one of your threads on one of the either Blue Sky or Twitter. It's hard to keep up with all that stuff, but you're talking about duos of Suzuki and Anderson, or Suzuki and Caulfield. They're pretty much one of the most underrated duos in the league. They don't get the respect that they deserve. That line has been excellent since they got back together. They're going to be avoiding that Stützle, or no, they'll probably go out a fair bit against the Stützle. But the thing is, all the Ottawa lines are pretty good defensively. Their penalty kill is pretty good. You know what I mean? It's not the best matchup. And they're coming in with double-digit projected ownership. I like Montreal one here. I just think at 17-6 and double digits, it's going to be hard to prioritize in single entry. Obviously, if you want to go for as you get this late into the season, sometimes you're looking for teams that have something to play for. I don't think we're at that level just yet, but they do obviously have a big game here tonight. So from that standpoint, I think you can play them. For me in single entry, I'm probably going to look elsewhere. I think they're fine in MME. Line A one-off is always in play. He's cheap enough to where it's not super crazy. He's 4,500. He's the key player on the power play. He may only play 13, 14 minutes, but if they do score on the power play, more likely than not, he will be involved. So really it's Montreal 1 or Line A. If you do need a cheap 3-man, if you're trying to power play stack the Oilers, for example, you can plug away at 2 of the guys on the Dvorak line, but that's really for MME only for some of the more feisty things you want to do. The Ottawa side is interesting because no one's playing them. And Cliffy also put out that Sam Montembeault has been one of the best goalies in the league basically since Christmas. The problem is Montreal is also one of the worst defensive teams since that time. The thing is, Ottawa 5-on-5 really sucks. That Stützle, Kachuk, Giroux line just hasn't gotten any better. And they're 19,900. That's really tough to prioritize. So if I'm going to go to the Sens, it's going to be that second line. They're 14,200. That line creates decently 2.7 expected goals. Actual goals are really high. They're, shooting a pretty high percentage, but at that price against the depth or the middle six of Montreal, it's a pretty good matchup for them. Only 1.1% projected ownership. And if you do want to turn into a power play stack, you can leave off Perron, add in Brady Tkachuk. It makes it 18.5, which is still $1,400 cheaper than stacking the top line. So for me, it'd be Montreal 1, Ottawa 2. I think you could turn Ottawa 2 into a power play stack as well.
Yeah, I agree on the assessment of the top lines. This is a game where if I play one of the top lines, it's Montreal 1 and not Ottawa 1. Since the Four Nations break, Ottawa top line, 2.3 expected goals. On the season, they're at 2.4 expected goals. Since the Four Nations break, they're at 2.3 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. On the season, they're at 2.1. So whether you're looking at recent play or whether you're looking at the entire year, that Ottawa top line just has not done anything at 5-on-5. So you're either looking for second or third lines or you're looking at the power play. Power play, it's a good matchup. Montreal's penalty kill is not bad. It's certainly nowhere near any of the elite power plays or penalty kills, sorry. But Ottawa, again, we mentioned it on I think it was Saturday's show. Ottawa's drawing a lot of power plays. Over the last 5 weeks, not including the Four Nations, they're at 3.6 power play opportunities per game. that is a half power play more than the fourth highest team. Like, they are drawing a lot of power plays. And if you go all the way back to January 1st, they're drawing the most power plays per game. So this is an Ottawa team that has had a good power play for most of the season, that draws a lot of power plays, facing an average to below average penalty kills. So I think you would want to focus on the power play guys, but not necessarily just stack the top line. So I agree. I would do something like Batherson, Cousins, Tkachuk. I think would be kind of where I would go here. Like, Cousins and Batherson, they've been good together since Cousins got there. 2.6 expected goals, 4 per 60, 65 shot attempts per 60 with the duo on the ice. Those are good numbers. And the Montreal depth is not good defensively. So they get pretty good 5-on-5 matchups. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on top power play unit. You add in Brady Tkachuk, who's just a shooting machine, and plays with the empty net and all that stuff. So that's kind of where I would go on the Ottawa side. I do have more interest in Ottawa than Montreal. I think there is a case for Montreal 1, though. Like you said, I mentioned yesterday on I think it was Blue Sky. Like, if you look at goals for and against for top lines going back to last year, like, they rank with Kucherov and Point or Marner and Matthews. Like, they're in that tier. And this is on a team that's definitely not been anywhere near the quality of Toronto or Tampa Bay over the last 2 years. So even, relative to their team, they're even better. They've been really good since the Four Nations break. 2.8 expected goals, 72 shot attempts per 60, 5.5 actual goals. They're riding a hot shooting percentage at 15.2%. One thing I will note is that Caulfield and Suzuki are generally between 10 and 11% shooting going back years now. So even if they were at 10%, like, they'd be at 3.7 goals per 60. You know what I mean? Like, they've been really, really good offensively at 5-on-5. The Ottawa penalty kill has been good for most of the year. It's been sliding over the last couple months. So maybe Montreal 1 can get there on the power play, and they're still getting a lot of ice time. Like, Slafkovsky and Caulfield playing 19 to 20 minutes, Suzuki well over 20 most nights. This isn't the Montreal 2 months ago when they were getting 16, 17, 18 minutes. They're getting 2 to 3 minutes more per game than that. So I think there is a case for Montreal 1, but it is the Ottawa side I like better here.
Yep. Calgary Flames with a 2.3 total. Heading into Madison Square Garden, the Rangers have a 3.3. Surgery went well. Thank you for asking. He's home running around like a chicken with his head cut off. Not surprised in the least. Rangers going Panarin, Trocheck, Cooley, Zibanejad, Miller, Lafreniere. Calgary going Kadri, Huberdeau, Pospisil, Coleman. Actually, we don't even know the Calgary lines because Zari is going to be back, and they played yesterday, and they got absolutely demolished. So they could completely blow up their lines. Not that I'm interested in stacking Calgary. I think one-offs are where I would be. If you want a one-off, Kadri, one-off Coronado, something like that. If there's a line combination that looks great, you can play them. But other than that, I'm not super excited about Calgary. My interest is on the Rangers side. Panarin, Trocheck, Cooley, 17,100, a 12.1% top 2 stack, 16.5% projected ownership. Now, that's really high. And, that line has been pretty good offensively in their 3 or 4 games they've been together. But if you look at Miller's Zibanejad, Lafreniere for $500 more, they're coming in with a fifth of the ownership. And they've been controlling the play better. They're creating decently, 2.6 expected goals. They haven't scored yet. That's the issue, right? The Rangers' Trocheck line has been scoring. Miller and Zibanejad and Lafreniere haven't. However, it is our boy Danny V in net for the probably. And this is a good power play spot, as you saw last night. The Leafs absolutely demolished the Flames on the power play. You get Miller and Zibanejad on the top power play there. If you want to, add a third piece, you can take off Lafreniere and add in either Kreider or Panarin. Gets more expensive, but that Miller line's coming in at 3.4%. So that is where I would go. Just because everyone's been paid off by the Trocheck, Panarin, Cooley line. I get it. Cooley has probably been their most consistent forward on the season, which is insane to say. But also, like, I know Zibanejad hasn't been scoring much lately, but since I think it's like the last 20 games or something like that, he's like second or third in the NHL in points. So I think I would go to the Miller Zibanejad Lafreniere line for way less ownership. And if you do want to turn it into a power play stack, you can leave off Lafreniere and add in Kreider or Panarin.
Yeah, I'll just quickly on Calgary. Like, I think the case would be for Calgary one, assuming it's Kadri, Huberdeau, X, whether it's Coronado, Zari, whomever. The case is ice time, right? It's the case we just made with Montreal, where the top line has been getting a lot of minutes. Kadri didn't play as much last night because the team got caved in, but had been playing pretty regularly, like 20 to 23 minutes. So the Calgary top line would be a top line getting a lot of ice time. Now, how valuable that ice time actually is another question entirely. But if Coronado's up there, or if Joel Farabee, who I'd like to see back up there, is on the top line, like, I don't mind playing Calgary one just for ice time, but it's a 2.3 total. I have way more interest in the Rangers here. Zibanejad with JT Miller, like, you're right, they haven't really been scoring. The thing with JT Miller is he's not a guy that will drive high rates of shot volume. He's a guy that really focuses on quality. It's like, what if Chandler Stevenson was actually still good? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the player that he is. He focuses on creating good shots for himself and good shots for his teammates, rather than, take a shot, look for a rebound, bang away into the goalie's pads, that type of thing. So there'll be stretches where they go pretty cold, and then the stretches where they're connecting on those passes, they're just absolutely torch the opposition. I think I agree with you, though, that if I can get that line for a fraction of the ownership, that's kind of where I'm going to go, because two reasons. I mean, one, you get Zibanejad and Miller on the top power play unit. We just saw Toronto absolutely obliterate the Calgary penalty kill. The Calgary PK has really not been like that strong for a while, like going back to January 1st, 20th by goals against per 60 minutes. Going back just, kind of like 5 weeks, they're a little bit closer towards the middle of the league, but it's giving up a lot of shots, and it's really been on the goaltending that's kind of saved them, more so Dustin Wolf than Danny Vladar. So I really do like Zibanejad, Trocheck, Lafreniere here for 17,600. If you want to get expensive, take out Lafreniere and put in Panarin. If you want, still a passable stack, Chris Kreider's only 4,900. It's only $300 more than Panarin, and that gives you a fully correlated top power play stack. This is a pretty good power play matchup. Calgary is taking a lot of penalties, 3.1 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. Second most in the league. If you go all the way back to January 1st, again, second most in the league. So the Rangers could get a lot of power plays here tonight. Obviously, Adam Fox is back, and that helps. So for me, it's the Zibanejad line. But again, if you want to take off Lafreniere and put in one of the power play guys like Panarin or Kreider, I have no issue with that.
Yeah, and people, Steve's saying I like Rangers one more. So do I, because they've been scoring. But we're just trying to leverage the power play spot here at a fifth of the ownership of that line. So if you want to go to the Trocheck line, by all means, they've been scoring, so you can go to them. We're just trying to, in a high ownership game, get some good ownership here. New York Islanders, the 3 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 2.9. This game sucks. Like, there's no way around it. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Tomasino, Heinen. Islanders going Horvat, Palmieri, Holmstrom, Lee, Pajot, Duclair. Both top lines here above 10%. Pittsburgh one coming in at 13.6% projected. New York Islanders 10.7% projected. I'll start on the Islanders side. Like, I don't really want to play them at 10.7% projected. Horvat and Holmstrom have a large sample this season. They aren't creating a bunch. They're scoring because they're shooting a fairly high percentage. They are fully correlated, and the Pittsburgh penalty kill sucks. It was decent for a time, but now it just kind of fell off. So like from that standpoint, I get it. But like 10.7% for Horvat, Palmieri, Holmstrom for, even the Trocheck line is only $600 more for a little bit more ownership. I'd rather play the Trocheck line at 16% than the Horvat line at 11. The Zibanejad line for 1,100 more is, half of the ownership. You know what I mean? So I think they can be in your MME portfolio. Don't get me wrong, but when it's coming to when it's coming to single entry 3 max, I just don't like the Islanders here. That second line, Pajot, Duclair, Lee, 13-4, 7%. Like, that's just not something I'm interested. I am kind of interested in the Pittsburgh top line here, and I know they're coming in at 13.6% projected, but they do have a 19% top 2 stack. They're 19,400. They're fully correlated. They put Grzelcyk back on the top power play, which is important because when Karlsson was there, their power play was pathetic. With Grzelcyk there, it's actually like average. And for the Penguins, having for a Mike Sullivan team, having an average power play is frankly a miracle. So I don't really mind Crosby, Rust, Raquel here either. They've been good all season. The Islanders aren't great defensively. Sorokin's been so hot and cold this season. So if you think, Sorokin's going to have a cold game, you put in Pitt 1. Am I going to get there in single entry? I don't think so. Like, I haven't built yet, but I think they'll be in the mix. Pitt 2, like, they're not creating a goddamn thing. They're scoring a bunch, though, and they're only 11,200. So if you're, like, power play stacking something super expensive and you kind of want to ride the wave, you can, like, 2-man Malkin and Tomasino or Tomasino and Heinen. Like, Tomasino and Heinen are 5,900 for the two of them. You know what I mean? So I'm not really super high in them. Like, the only line I really like in this game is Pitt 1. I guess the Islanders top line's fine, but I'd rather go elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't play chalk Islanders. That's just something I normally don't do. I'm not playing the top line, the Bo Horvat line, 16,500. Like, you can go play either of the Rangers lines for like $1,000 more. You can go play Montreal 1 for like $1,000 more. These are all, I mean, at the very least, in the case of Montreal, it's a much, much better line than this Rangers top line. So like, I'm out. Like, if you want to dip down to Islanders 2, because they're 13,400, they're basically a filler. Lee and Duclair in a small sample have been good. Like 3.2 expected goals, 2.9 actual goals per 60. Like, those are good offensive numbers. They're coming in over leveraged, obviously, because the Islanders are chalk tonight. But, once you get to this, especially matched up against the Malkin line, it's a really good 5-on-5 matchup. Like I said, they're cheap enough where they're basically a filler stack. I think I'd rather play Islanders 2 than Islanders 1. On the Pittsburgh side, like, I would probably have the most interest in the top line. I don't mind like one-offing Tomasino or something like that. That's kind of my limit. Like, Kevin Hayes is on the top power play unit. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily advocating one-off Kevin Hayes, but that's there. But like the Pittsburgh top line, 3.3 goals per 60 since the Four Nations Cup, getting Grzelcyk back. Like, the Pittsburgh power play was scoring at has been scoring at basically half the rate that it was when Matt Grzelcyk was running it. So like you said, putting him back up there really does matter, especially against a bad Islanders penalty kill. For me, it's easily Pitt 1 in this game. 19,400. I'm not super keen on the really expensive lines here tonight. So I actually do think Pitt 1 is near the top of my priority list for like the expensive lines, like 18K and above. I just don't think that's how I'm going to be building here tonight. But I do like Pittsburgh 1 in this matchup. I think Islanders 2 is fine as a filler. In general, I don't really like this game.
Yeah, and there's a line in the next game for $100 more than Pitt 1 that I think I don't like as much, but let's talk about it right now. Detroit Red Wings with the 2.7 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.4. I know Washington mixed up their lines in their last game, but we're expecting Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, Dubois, Protas, McMichael, Detroit, Larkin, Raymond, Soderblom, DeBrincat, Kane, Casper. Now, I'll start on the Detroit side. there's no ownership on Detroit here. None. And they're not super expensive. Like, I know the second line is 18,000, but they were like 19.3 last week. Top line 16.4 with 1.8% projected ownership. Like, I don't love Elmer Soderblom up there, but Larkin and Raymond together this season basically could carry me to decent numbers. So, like, we've talked about Washington's, I don't want to say fall from grace because they're still winning games, but like when Logan Thompson stopped saving the puck at 940, you saw that they're not as great defensively as we thought. So, like, that does put Detroit in play a little bit here, and they're also super mega much wow power play merchants. So, like, if you wanted to go to that second line and leave off Casper and add in Raymond, or do like Larkin, Raymond, Kane, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, that gets a little expensive, and that kind of sucks. So, like, in single entry, I'm probably not going to do it. But I think if you're making 20 or more lineups, having some sort of Detroit power play stack is where I would go. If you want to play Detroit 1 just straight up, I think that's fine. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Soderblom there, but it's 16.4 and 1.8% projected. I'd much rather play them than the Islanders top line for $100 more at 11%. You know what I mean? So for me, it would be Detroit 1. If I was making a bunch of lineups, I'd find a way to get a Detroit power play stack in there. The Washington side is a bit more interesting. I don't particularly love these lines, but Ovechkin's 8 goals away from breaking Gretzky, and that's important because they really, really are doing everything they can to get him goals. He'll be on with the empty net. He'll be on for the full power play. They get him in really good spots. So while I don't love Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, like, that line just hasn't been great at all this season, I think you can do some sort of power play stack. And unfortunately, that top line is fully correlated, but Ovechkin does play the full 2 minutes, and McMichael is on the second unit. So what I think you can do is go like Dubois, McMichael, Ovechkin. And, you know, that's not super expensive. It's only like 17.7. And, you know, Ovechkin has that power play correlation with both Pierre-Luc Dubois and Connor McMichael. So I think that's where I'd go. It feels weird leaving off Protas, but like, he's shooting like 9,000% this season. So, like, I'm fine with a Dubois, Ovechkin, McMichael stack, or Dubois, Ovechkin, Strome, or something like that. I don't know. It would be some sort of power play stack on both sides, but I'd make sure to get Ovechkin in.
I don't have any interest in the Larkin line. Larkin and Soderblom on the ice together this season, 45 shot attempts and 2 expected goals per 60 minutes. It's pathetic. The only reason they're scoring at any sort of reasonable rate is they're shooting like 19%. Again, we always say like shooting like 11 to 12% is like the high end. I just talked about Caulfield and Suzuki living between 10 and 11%, and that's consistently amongst the highest rates in the league year after year. What they're doing, it's just, there's no chance it's anywhere close to sustainable, and they're not generating any offense. So you're really relying on the power play. And if I'm going to rely on the power play, each line has 2 guys on the top power play unit. I'll go play the line that's actually good. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go play Casper, DeBrincat, and Kane. 70 shot attempts, 4.7 expected goals, 4.8 actual goals per 60 for that line. It's only a 60-something minute sample, but Casper has been able to carry, whether it was the third line earlier in the season, the top line after Christmas, or that second line basically in the month of March, Casper's been able to elevate every single line that he's been on. I think 18K is my sticking point here. That's pretty hefty for an uncorrelated line on the road facing Logan Thompson. You know what I mean? The Caps penalty kill's been on kind of a slide, but it's still good. Like a slide from like being top 3, top 5 to like top 10. You know what I mean? So like, I mean, I'm fine playing Detroit. If I did, it would be Detroit 2. But again, at 18K, I'd rather go play a fully correlated Montreal team that's at home for 17,600. Like, do you want to play an uncorrelated Detroit second line on the road facing Logan Thompson, or a fully correlated Montreal top line at home against Linus Ullmark? Like, to me, it seems like a fairly easy decision. So kind of out on Detroit. On the Washington side, I agree with you with the power play stacking just because Detroit's penalty kill is still so bad. Since the Four Nations break, Detroit fourth most goals against per 60 on the penalty kill over the last 5 weeks, third most goals against per 60 going back to January 1st, third most goals against per 60. Any sample you look at over the last 3 months, Detroit's penalty kill has been terrible. Not that Washington's power play is any good, but this is an excellent matchup for them. So I agree with you. I'd build around Ovechkin somehow. Ovechkin, Dubois, Wilson, Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, just go fully with the top line. But I would build around Ovechkin somehow. I'd make sure to have at least 2 power play guys in my stack because it is such a good power play matchup. But for me, this is definitely a Washington game. I have no interest in Detroit.
Fair enough. St. Louis Blues with a 2.8 total heading into Nashville. The Preds, 2.7. Nashville going, well, we don't know for sure what Nashville is doing because Evangelista is back in the lineup, but what they're projecting, at least, is Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Marchessault, Bunting, Sissons. On the St. Louis side, Kyrou, Holloway, Shen, Thomas, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Bolduc, Sundqvist, Joseph. If it is Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, that line has at least been passable on both ends. They're not great at either end. And they're 19-7. So, I'd rather play Washington. I'd rather play Pittsburgh in the 18-19K range there. They're fine. They're fully correlated. And the Blues penalty kill is the worst thing in the NHL. So, from that standpoint, I guess it's fine. But in single entry, I really don't have any interest in Nashville in single entry. So I'm probably out on them. A one-off Forsberg is probably the thing I would do, a one-off Marchessault, but really in single entry, out on Nashville. If you happen to get to some of the top line in MME, that's cool. They do have an 11% top 2 stack. On the Blues side, if it is, again, O'Reilly, Stamkos, Forsberg, they've at least been passable defensively in a 92-minute sample. I cannot imagine Sissons, Marchessault, Bunting being anything worth a damn defensively. So for that reason, I would go to Kyrou, Holloway, Shen, and they're fully correlated on the unit with Jake Neighbors. So I prefer that power play unit. So I think I would go to Kyrou, Holloway, Shen. Thomas Buchnevich, Neighbors is fine. They're the same price, but they're not fully correlated. Kyrou's in a better 5-on-5 matchup. So I think I would go to the Holloway line there. I will mention 2-man of Bolduc and Sundqvist. They are on that Thomas Buchnevich power play. They are fairly cheap 2-man, 7,500 for the two of them. They get depth of Nashville. They've been good in 120 minutes at 5-on-5. If you are looking to power play stack a team, I think that is a cheap 2-man that will help you achieve that. But Shen line and maybe some Forsberg or something. I don't really love Nashville.
Forgot I muted my mic there. I'm just pretty much out on Nashville. Low key, St. Louis has been one of the best defensive teams in the league for a while now. Going back to January 1st, the second fewest expected goals against per 60 of any team in the league. Goals against, sixth fewest. If you look at just since the Four Nations break, lowest expected goals against per 60 in the league, and by a wide margin. Where St. Louis gets into trouble is on the penalty kill that, as you mentioned, has generally not been very good. And in fact, has been quite bad for a large chunk of the season. Here's the problem. Nashville's power play, their goal scoring has basically been cut in half without Roman Josi in the lineup. So no Roman Josi running the power play, terrible 5-on-5 matchup. I'm out on Nashville. So this is a St. Louis game for me. The question is, which St. Louis line do you go to? Honestly, I think this is one where I would kind of be tempted to go with Kyrou, Holloway, and Schenn. The only reason being that they are perfectly correlated on the power play. And Nashville, their penalty killing has been entirely reliant on good goaltending. When the goaltending's there, their penalty kill is good. When their goaltending is bad, it is definitely not. Kyrou, Schenn, Holloway are 16,400 since the Four Nations break, 4.4 goals per 60, shooting 15.5%, of course, which is high. But, I always talk about how Jordan Kyrou is one of the best dual threat offensive players in the league. Brayden Schenn is a very underrated playmaker. Like, these guys do things that can drive high shooting percentages, not 15% high, but certainly 10, 11%. And they're still getting reasonable amounts of ice time, 16 to 18 minutes. So perfectly correlated, 16,400. It's Kyrou, Holloway, and Schenn. I'm fine with, honestly, either of the St. Louis top two lines. I think they're very much both in play. If you like the Thomas Buchnevich Neighbors line better, fill your boots. No issue with that. I think I'd rather go with the perfectly correlated line because Nashville's penalty kill has let them down. Even if the St. Louis power play isn't good, it has let the Nashville penalty kill has let them down at times. So it's Kyrou, Holloway, Schenn for me, and no real interest on the Nashville side.
We are on the same Blues line again. That is 3 slates in a row. I don't know what that means. Gonna ask Miss Cleo. Anaheim Ducks with a 2.2 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have the biggest total of the night, 3.8. Dallas going Rantanen, Robertson, Hintz, Duchesne, Granlund, Marchment, Wyatt Johnston, Jamie Benn, Evgeny Dodonov. Ducks going Vetrano, Terry Strome, Zegras, Carlson, Killorn, McTavish, Gauthier, and Nikita Nesterenko. Dallas one's the most expensive on the board at 21,600, 23.9% top two stack, 9.6% projected ownership. Like, they're in a really good 5-on-5 spot and a really good power play spot. I don't know if I want to spend 21,600 on them. Really, generally, since the new pricing has come out, I've really only played Colorado at those prices. Now I say that, right, and Dallas's power play has really been rolling, I think they're fine. Don't get me wrong. The thing is, right, I want to have Wyatt Johnston in my lineup if I'm going to do anything with the power play. So I think you could go like Johnston, Ben, and then leave off Dodonov and add in one of Hintz, Robertson, Rantanen. Johnston and Ben have played well together for a couple years now. You can get another one of those top power play guys if you want. If you add in who's the most expensive, Rantanen, it goes up to 19-1. I think that's fine. If I'm going to do some sort of power play stack, I want Wyatt Johnston in there. I'd probably add Robertson as my third guy. But if you want to just stack Dallas one and don't even worry about it, that's also fine. But for me, I want to get some Wyatt Johnston in there. I'll figure out a way to get him into a power play stack. The second line of Duchesne, Granlund, and Marchment is fine. Like, Duchesne and Marchment have played very well together this season and last season, mostly with Sagan. And they've been fine offensively with Granlund there. They just haven't been great defensively. So I'm probably just going to go to some sort of power play stack or just go to Johnston and Ben. On the Ducks side, because that Duchesne line hasn't been great and their penalty kill has suffered a bit since Heiskanen left, I think for me it's Carlson, Zegras, Killorn. You can do whatever you want with Killorn, but you do get Carlson and Zegras on the top unit there. They are 8,700 for the two of them, coming in at, no one's playing them, 0.1. I'm not advocating to play the Ducks here. They have a 2.2 road total. But if you need a cheap two-man in a better than anticipated spot, I think for me on the Ducks side, it'd be Carlson, Zegras.
You know what? I might advocate playing the Anaheim Ducks here tonight.
That's what I'm into.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Miro Heiskanen was injured on January 28th. Since January 29th, the Dallas Stars have the 4th worst expected goals against mark in the league. They're at 5-on-5. Their expected goals against and their actual goals against worse than Pittsburgh, about the same as Buffalo, worse than the Rangers, worse than Montreal. The only team that they compared to really defensively is Chicago. That's how, like, it's kind of gone under noticed or unreported or whatever you want to say, that this team has been absolute ass defensively since Miro Heiskanen got hurt. It's like, would you expect giving Matt Dumba a regular role and replacing Miro Heiskanen with Cody Ceci? Like, the results have been what they've been, and it's not just, you know, some unlucky save percentages or something. This team is giving up a lot defensively. And the compounding problem, obviously, is that the penalty kill has similarly seen a reasonable slide. Dallas had typically been one of the best penalty kills in the league all season. Since the Four Nations break, 7th most shots against on the penalty kill of any team in the league. They're nestled between Columbus and Pittsburgh. This is not a good defensive team. This has not been a good defensive team for 7 weeks now. 5 weeks if you take out the break. I don't know, man. Like, I don't think I would play Vetrano, Terry, Strome, just because Dallas can still put out a good top pair, an average, defensively average top pair, and be fine. It's their second and third pairs where they're getting into trouble. So I kind of agree with you. Like, Zegras, Kaloran, Karlsson is very much in play here. I would also say like a McTavish, Gauthier 2-man or something like that is very much in play here. I honestly don't know how much worse defensively the second and third lines from Anaheim are than the second and third lines from Dallas at this point, when you include how bad the defensemen are. Like, I'm being serious. So now the offensive quality of the forwards is completely different, which is why I think you're seeing such a big gap in the team goal totals. But I do think like a Zegras, Kaloran 2-man, Karlsson, Zegras, McTavish, Gauthier, those kinds of things are very much in play on the Anaheim side here. Of course, I really do like Dallas. I'm with you, though. I'm not paying $21,600 for the top line. Listen, we said that we didn't like playing Mikko Rantanen at his prices in Carolina because he was playing 19 and a half, 20 minutes, like a lot less than he was in Colorado. He's at 7,700 here today. 7,700 is the most, is his highest price since he was in Carolina. And he's getting less ice time in Dallas than he was in Carolina. Now, I assume the top line is going to be pretty good offensively, but I just paying nearly almost $22K for a line that's going to play 19 minutes here tonight just feels really, really steep. Like, in that kind of situation, I'd rather kind of go save the $2,000 and go play Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Go play Washington, those types of things. So I think it's Dallas too, where my interest really is. Like Granlund, Marchment, Duchesne, over 120 minutes together, 3.2 expected goals, 3.5 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Obviously, none of them are on the top power play. If they get secondary power play time, they'll all be there. None of them are on the top power play unit. That sucks. By the same token, that line is $6,000 cheaper and coming in with less ownership. Obviously, the top two stack is a lot lower. That's why the top line, is priced where it is. But 7% ownership for a line that's been excellent at 5-on-5s ever since Michael Granlund got there. At least offensively. Defensively, they're still a horror show, but offensively, they're really good. For me, I'm in on Dallas too, and I do think there's some cheap players to like on the Anaheim side.
Oh, boy. What a game we have cooking here. Seattle Kraken with a 3.2 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks with a 2.7. Chicago going Bedard, Donato, Nazar, Teravainen, Mikheyev, Dickinson. Cliffy had a nice bit on Ilya Mikheyev in his article. If you're not subscribed, check out his Twitter at Slim Cliffy, since he He won't mention it because he's too humble. Seattle going Beniers, Schwartz, and Kakko. Stevenson, Tolvanen, Eberle, McCann, Burakovsky, Nyman. I don't even know. Yanni Nyman, we'll say. I don't watch much Seattle Kraken hockey with the volume on. God damn it. I hate this game so much that I am considering a Bedard line and a Chandler Stevenson line. At the same token, I might just go play in traffic. That being said, Bedard, Donato, Nazar is one of the best combinations that Chicago can put together. Donato, listen, outside of Bedard, Donato has easily been their best forward, and some will be like, Donato has been better than Bedard. Go look at Bedard's line mates all season, and then come back to me. With Dickinson in between Teravainen and Mikheyev, they're going to go out against top competition, which is Beniers. So Bedard's going to see that Chandler Stevenson line, and oh boy, howdy, do we love picking on that line. Now, with Tolvanen and Eberle there in a smaller sample, they've actually been okay. But Seattle's penalty kill isn't great. Their goaltending really has struggled. I don't love Chicago here, but at 15,400, I think they're in play in a mid-range build. They're coming in over-leveraged at 8.6%, which is fine because I'd rather play them at 8.4% than the Beniers line at 11%. We'll get to that in a second. So for me, it's really just Chicago 1. If you want to turn it into a power play stack, you can leave off Nazar and add in Teravainen. You would probably need to pour yourself a stiff drink before you watch that game, but I think I would just go Chicago 1 here. On the Seattle side, I know Chicago is just a bag of ass defensively, but Beniers, Schwartz, Kakko, they're still fine. They've played over 400 minutes together, 2.6 expected goals, 2.9 actual. I think they're fine, but at 13,200, 3.7% top two stack, 11.4% projected ownership. No thanks. Honestly, I'd rather just save the $500 and go play Stevenson, Tolvanen, and Eberle. In 60 minutes, 2.9 expected goals for, 4.9 actual. You get Stevenson and Eberle on the top unit. Not that, Seattle's power play is anything worth a damn. But it's still two guys there. So I think I prefer the Stevenson lines to the Benier lines. If you want to drop even further, I think you could play McCann, Burakovsky, Nyman. If you just want to one-off Nyman, I think that's fine. For me, it would be Chicago 1 and Seattle 2, but holy fuck, this game sucks.
Yeah. The case for Chicago 1 is that Bedard and Donato have actually been able to score well when they played together. Very few Chicago lines have actually been able to do that in any sort of reasonable sample, but Bedard, Donato, over 250 minutes together at 5-on-5, 2.4 expected goals, 2.8 actual. Being able to score an above average rate on the Chicago Blackhawks is something that is obviously worth mentioning because it doesn't happen very often. Bedard and Donato, both on the top power play unit. The thing is Chicago's power play really has been quite bad without Seth Jones. I was looking up. It's only been, take it with a grain of salt. It's been a little bit over 3 weeks, but since the Four Nations, without Seth Jones running the power play, Chicago's top power play units generating 61 shot attempts per 60 minutes.
Flyers, baby.
I think that actually makes the Flyers look good. if I'm being honest. Their power play is absolutely awful, so you can't really take advantage of a bad Seattle penalty kill. But they have been good at 5-on-5. They're very reasonably priced at 15,400. So I guess a Chicago 1. I think in general, I'm more interested in the Seattle side now. As you mentioned, there is quite a bit of ownership coming in on all three lines. I think it's Stevenson, Tolvanen, Eberle. That I know. Trust me, I don't feel good about it either.
We're both on a Stevenson line.
But Eberle and Stevenson, since Eberle returned, 2.4 expected goals, 59 shot attempts per 60, 4.7 actual goals. Obviously, the shooting percentage is high. if they're shooting 10%, then they'd be above average. They'd be right around the Connor Bedard line, if not higher, by 5-on-5 goal scoring. Eberle, I think this team really missed Eberle when he was injured. Like, he is, I would say, probably their best winger. Like, if you want to argue Jared McCann or something, like, I wouldn't get super upset, but he is very good at driving offense for whatever line he's on. So I think it's Stevenson, Tolvin, and Eberle that I have interest in here, especially where I assume that Dickinson-Mikheyev line is going to go out against Kakko and Beniers. And then once you get up against the Connor Bedard line, once you get up against that bottom six, I think that's where Stevenson, Tolvin, and Eberle can shine. So that's the line I have the most interest in this game. But of course, Chicago won definitely in play here.
What a game, baby. Stevenson, we've done it. We touted him. We hit our quota until 2032 when that contract expires. Utah, the Soakers, 2.7 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 3.3. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Skinner. Draisaitl, Perry, Brown, Nugent Hopkins, Arvidsson, Podkolzin. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Kerfoot, Genther, Cooley, Hayton, Doan, Krause, McBain. It's a pretty interesting game here. Not ideal at, not the best 5-on-5 matchup for Edmonton. Connor McDavid, fairly matchup proof here. I don't particularly love that line. Like, I know, like, they can be really good offensively. It's been a really small sample, but they haven't been good defensively at all. I think, again, if I'm doing something with Edmonton, forget the 5-on-5 lines. It's Draisaitl building around him, and then McDavid. So if it's Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid, Hyman, or McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins. I don't particularly love stacking across 3 even strength lines, and going triple center is not exactly the sexiest thing, but it would be the Edmonton power play guys that give me the most interest. I think because Hyman and McDavid play together, I would go McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl. That's probably be the 3-man that I would go. On the Utah side, I think there's 2 playable lines. Surprisingly enough, with Kerfoot in between Keller and Schmaltz, they've been pretty good offensively. Now they're shooting a really low percentage, but lines go through that in a small sample. I'm fine with Keller, Schmaltz, Kerfoot at $15,100. Kerfoot's only $3,000, and it gets you Keller and Schmaltz, who are on the top power play unit, for cheap. Now, if you want to go to Genther, Cooley, Hayton, I think that's also fine. They're $2,000 more expensive, however. You do get Hayton and Genther on the top power play. Hayton has been really good this season. He was hurt last season. He's looked really good with Genther. Cooley on that line. It's an interesting line. If you just want a power play stack, I think that's fine. Go like Hayton, Genther, Clayton, or Clayton, Keller. I don't know why I just said Clayton. Hayton, Genther, Keller. So I think there's 3 possible ways you can go about Utah, maybe 4, because as we talked about yesterday, if with the dynamic pricing, sometimes you're down to a really, really cheap one-off. Jack McBain's $2,600, and that line's been really good. If you have a lineup that you love and you need a $2,600 utility player or center, I think Jack McBain is fine for that price. But I think it would be Utah 1 for me, then Utah 2, then Utah power play stack, and for Edmonton power play stacking.
Yeah, I'll start on the Edmonton side. I'm going to be honest. I kind of have a little bit more interest in the Draisaitl, Perry, Brown line, which, or at least, Draisaitl and Perry. Like, Draisaitl and Perry have actually played well together this year. I was looking up the 5-on-5 numbers. With those 2 on the ice without McDavid, 3.8 expected goals, 3.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Like, that's pretty good. So if you want to do like Draisaitl, McDavid, Perry, I think that's fine. Draisaitl, Hyman, Perry, like those types of things, I think that's fine. Like, I'm perfectly fine with including Corey Perry in the stack tonight, which I can't believe I'm saying in the year 2025. But he's only $3,300, and like I said, him and Draisaitl have played very well together. And also, Matthias Ekholm being back for Edmonton tonight makes a difference, right? Like, now you have Bouchard, Ekholm, and Jake Wallman and Brett Kulak. Like, those are two pretty good defense pairs, you know what I mean? Like, I think that should make a difference for Edmonton's offense. So, yeah, like I said, Draisaitl, Perry, McDavid, Draisaitl, Perry, Hyman, like those kinds of things. I think that's where I am with Edmonton. I would absolutely make Draisaitl is the guy that I would make sure I would include. Like, this guy's might push for a 60-60 season. I've said it over and over. It's actually kind of still surreal to me that he's cheaper than McDavid is. Like, trust me, I get how good McDavid is, but given the last 65 games of this season, it's kind of nuts. On the Utah side, like, I don't really have a ton of interest in playing Guenther, Cooley, Hayton. The reason being, like, it's 17,100 for an uncorrelated second line on the road. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, again, that's one of those situations where I would probably rather just go play Montreal. I'd rather go play one of the Rangers lines. Probably rather just go play St. Louis, like those types of things. So I'm out on Utah too. I agree with you. I think it'd be Utah 1 at that price, like just over 15K. Keller and Schmaltz played 19 and 20 minutes. Nick Schmaltz has 30 shots in his last 10 games. When Schmaltz is shooting like that, it makes the top line very dangerous. I'm not really worried about a matchup against McDavid, especially with Jeff Skinner and as a winger next to him. Again, Ekholm coming back should help them defensively, but it's still Edmonton goaltending. I think it's Utah 1 would be my interest on that side, but it's Edmonton I'm most interested in this game.
Winnipeg Jets with a 3 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 2.4. Winnipeg going Connor Velarde Scheifele, Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemestikov, Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton. Vancouver going, it doesn't really matter, but they're going Pettersson, DeBrusk, Hoglander, Besser, Sherwood, Bluger, Garland, Suter, Joshua. I'm out on Vancouver. Like, one off Besser, one off Garland, one off Quinn Hughes. Honestly,
they did have morning skate while we were on. It's Hoglander, Pettersson, Besser, DeBrusk, Suter, Sherwood. Connor Garland, I think, is a game time decision. I don't think any of this really matters.
Yeah, like, I don't really want to play Vancouver. I'm out on them. Winnipeg, I think, is more interesting, but again, that top line is 20,800. I don't particularly love going up past like Pittsburgh at 19.4 here tonight. If you do, like, fine. They're fine. They're coming in at 1.8% projected ownership. I think I would go to the second line, do like a Ehlers Perfidi 2-man or something like that. But, at that point, like, I'll just go play another line in that price range. Obviously, I think Ehlers 1-off is fine. The top line is my favorite line in this game. It's just I don't think I'm going to be prioritizing them. It's the only late game tonight, too, and it just feels bad not even wanting a piece of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm completely out on Vancouver. I have no interest in that team facing Winnipeg, that's for sure. So for me, my interest on the Winnipeg side, I don't really like Winnipeg 1 here. The reason being Vancouver has the one thing that they have and that they've generally had basically all season is a really good penalty kill. Since the Four Nations break, fewest shot attempts against, second fewest goals against per minute on the penalty kill over the last 5 weeks. Second fewest shot attempts against, fewest goals against per minute on the penalty kill. So they've generally had a really good PK. It makes it a really bad power play matchup for Winnipeg. So then you're asking a $20,800 line to get there pretty much all at even strength or on the empty net. They can, but I'd rather just go play Pittsburgh instead. So I think I'm out on Winnipeg 1. Winnipeg 2 is kind of interesting. Since the Four Nations break, that Winnipeg second line, 67 shot attempts, 3.4 expected goals, but they're not scoring well because they're only shooting 7%. They're not getting a ton of ice time, which worries me at 14,500. But they've been creating extremely well, basically for months now. Like, I'm talking like going back to November. Nikolai Ehlers still on the top power play. So if they do break through, you have a little bit of exposure there. I think my interest is in Winnipeg too. Overall, I don't have a lot of interest in this game though.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's get to defensemen here. I see our boss, Jake Hari, decided to price the defenseman here tonight. Roman Josi, who's out, is the most expensive defenseman at $6,900. I see you, Jake. We can see right through you. But yeah, other than him, at the top of the board, we have Bouchard, Sanderson, Morrissey, Hughes, Cedar, Weegar, Harley, and Dobson. Those are the guys 6K and up. I think obviously Bouchard makes a lot of sense here. I think Sanderson's in a good spot for a power play. Other than that, like I think Harley is obviously fine. But those would be the three guys: Bouchard, Sanderson, Harley. I think, Quinn Hughes is fine. Morrissey is fine. These other guys are fine. But, like, if I'm not spending up for Bouchard, Harley, or Sanderson, I'm probably going cheaper.
Yeah, I do worry about Bouchard's minutes with Ekholm back. Like, is he still the number 2 defenseman? Is he going to be the number 3? Is he going to play, like, 16 minutes plus 3 power play time? Like, that's what I kind of worry about. But Bouchard still is projecting well. Quinn Hughes is the top projected defenseman at Stochastic tonight, and it's not particularly close. I don't love the matchup. I will say my favorite play in that game from the Vancouver side is playing Quinn Hughes. It's one of those things, like if they do get 3 goals or something, like he's probably going to have to figure in pretty heavily. So I don't mind Hughes. Bouchard would be number 2, and then Thomas Harley number 3 behind them. That's my order. The mid-price range, there are some guys I like Brandon Montour, obviously in a great spot for Seattle. Whether you want to play Carlson for the power play or Jacob Chychrun for his shooting from Washington, I think both are fine. Jackson Lacombe, like I said, I think it's an underrated spot for Anaheim here tonight. Rasmus Anderson is even cheaper than he was last night for Calgary. Brady Shea back on the top power play unit for Nashville. It's not worth a lot because Nashville's power play hasn't been very good. But again, top power play minutes is better than no power play minutes. If you need to go cheaper, Matt Grzelcyk is running the top power play for Pittsburgh now. Artem Levshunov running a bad top power play unit for Chicago. He's cheap. Connor Murphy is projecting well. Matt Roy is projecting well. If you need to go really cheap, like Ethan Del Mastro, mid price, like 19 minutes is okay. Michael Del Gazzo from Nashville. He's projected as the top defenseman under 3K on DraftKings here tonight. Liam Bissell from Dallas under 3K, like he's fine as well. Jaden Struble, I'll mention from Montreal, just because he's playing like 17 minutes, which isn't great, but he's paired with Lane Hudson, and they do play a lot with the Suzuki line, so throwing that out there. And I hate to say it, I guess Travis Hamonic from Ottawa. The only reason being, if you need a guy under 3K, and with Nick Jensen out, Hamonic might have to play 20 or 21 minutes here tonight.
Yeah, one more I'll just add, 2,800, John Marino. He plays like 23, 24 minutes. He's live for a block bonus. I wouldn't expect much offensively, but beggars can't be choosers when you're getting that cheap.
I agree.
I guess you still could beg, but, you're not going to be able to choose. Goalies here tonight. At the top of the board, it is a mess. There is Ottinger, there's Logan Thompson, there's Joey Decord, Calvin Pickard, Igor Shesterkin. The one guy, like, honestly, is Connor Hellebuyck. I know he's on the road, but, like, Vancouver is pretty bad. 8,100 for Hellebuyck. Like, Logan Thompson's fine. I just don't really want to spend 8,500 for a goalie. So if I'm spending up, it's Hellebuyck. Don't mind Olmark at 8K. He's been really good. Spending down, Sam Montembeault at 7,400. Spencer Knight at 7K. And then, like, if you're going under 7K, there's Mrazek or Dostal. I think I prefer not to play either, but if you had to go below, I think it would be Mrazek.
Yeah. If you're paying up, I think the guy is Igor. 8,200. He's the top projected. Yeah. Igor is the top projected goalie on Stochastic here tonight. by both overall fantasy points and point per dollar. So I think the expensive guy is Igor. Logan Thompson is fine, I think, as well, but I'd honestly rather play Shesterkin. For a cheaper goalie, like Joel Hofer, I think for St. Louis makes sense. Sam Montembeault, again, like Ottawa still has trouble scoring at 5-on-5. It's only on the power play where they can really do damage. So if Montreal can hold them off there, Montembeault could have another good night. Spencer Knight, I agree with you. Certainly in play for Chicago here tonight at $7K. I honestly think that's probably the cheapest I would go. I don't think I would get down to Mrazek or Dostal. I would just find the extra couple $100 to replace Spencer Knight.
Yeah. We'll be back on Thursday. There's only 2 games tomorrow. 2 games? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
There's 14 games on Thursday, but I wonder if DraftKings leaves off the late 4 and makes it a 10-game slate. We'll see what happens there. But who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Well, I do like this line here tonight. They're from the highest total, so maybe a little bit chalk, but I'm going Mason Marchment.
Let's just get the suck out of the way. I'm going Ryan Donato.
Ooh, that'd be something.
The dogs are offended, but we will be back on Thursday. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll see you in the Discord.
Good luck tonight, everyone.